It's still daybreak. We're live from Abuja now to what the papers are saying on their front pages, and we'll have Dr. Constance Ikoku here in the studio.
Good morning, Indy.
Good morning,
Adeso.
Good
Good to be here. Okay, to look at the newspapers today, with us we have Emmanuel Azikiwe. He is a columnist with Vanguard newspaper and former political editor. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day newspaper. Naira to fix Nigeria's challenges, northern elite must fix region's problem. With Naira-for-Crude, Tinubu promises more stability. TCN targets Sunday to restore power to the north, says insecurity hindering efforts. They've been without power in that region for a while now. In a 30-minute call, Tinubu-Biden seek to deepen partnership in U.S.-Nigeria relations. President Biden thanked Tinubu for dropping charges against Binance executive Tigran Gambaryan, who was accused of money laundering and tax evasion. Biden also said the USA is committed to supporting 2 permanent seats for Africa at the United Nations, one that can be occupied by Nigeria. The 2 leaders also spoke about partnership in addressing global challenges. Well, what a call. What do you make of this call and the topics discussed? Emmanuel, welcome to the program.
Well, it is significant that the Nigerian administration of our Nigerian officials are celebrating this call. For the President of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, to spend 30 minutes with an equivalent head of state, it's significant and is remarkable. And what Nigeria stands to gain from this deepening partnership that President Biden is calling for is what we have not yet understood. I want to right off say that democratic presidents in recent times have not been favorably disposed to Nigeria as it were. We do remember that it was during the time of President Barack Obama that Nigeria began to have its problems. And you will see that President Biden was appreciating the efforts by the Tinubu administration in dropping the charges against the Binance executive. But what does Nigeria stand to gain from it? Somebody is alleged to have committed criminal charges against the country and he was let off the hook. What does Nigeria stand to gain from it? So in a nutshell, I want to say that every country wants to get the advantage from other countries. That is what President Biden is always is seeking to do in this respect. But what Nigeria stands to gain from it in terms of concrete economic benefits or even political benefits, the issue about the permanent 2 permanent seats for Africa, it's not something I think is deliverable, not by the Biden administration or not even by the permanent members of the UN members of the council. So I think it's Biden is just is a parting shot, a parting discussion with President Tinubu.
Well, good questions that Emmanuel has raised there. What does Nigeria stand to gain? Again, the question will also be, how organized are you? You know, probably the main focus should be looking inward to find a sustainable path out of the current state of affairs. Then when you are properly organized, you can have, you know, the kind of strength that you require in order to negotiate or navigate the complex global world that we live in today and day.
Yeah, someone once said that you're dressed the way you dress, you know, and charity begins at home. You need to learn how to give yourself value before others can give you value. You wonder, the call sounds interesting, but one can't help to think that it's because of the deal, I guess so. Releasing the Binance,
yes,
you know, that
who was accused of you know, contributing to the collapse of the Naira. I mean, it's interesting how things work. Yeah,
and that's another thing, because in some countries I know in this world, like the countries that do not mercy when their laws are flouted, particularly when it has to do with drugs, there's no plea. You just go. It's good to forgive, but then again, like Emmanuel asked, what do we stand to gain? I mean, he's almost going out, and this is, I guess, the only time or so that he called Nigeria. So it goes back to what we're saying initially. You dress the way, people address you the way you dress.
Right. Okay, let's look at The Guardian this morning. Documentation stores ministerial nominee screening. There was supposed to be a screening yesterday, but it did not occur. Petrol consumption hovers at 50 million liters a day amid deregulation, smuggling. Telcos losing billions of naira to vandalism as NCC audit shows subscription shortfall. FG6 regional cooperation against small arms IED threats. State's poor IGR raises fiscal sustainability concerns. This is according to this Guardian report. We've always known this, but this report paints a more solid picture by providing figures and data to aid analysis. For instance, it says that 32 states depend on Federal Accounts Allocation Committee for 55% of their revenue, while 14% get 70% of their money from there. It has also talked about internally generated revenue by zones in 2023. If you zoom into that, Northwest 206.22 billion naira, Northeast 104.35 billion, North Central 387.65 billion naira, and then you have the Southwest 468.7 billion naira. That's probably high because of Lagos, which receives or generates a lot of revenue. You have the Southeast 142.95 billion naira. A lot there to chew. What's your take on this, Emmanuel?
First of all, one must commend budget for bringing Nigerians to know the state of our affairs, especially as concerning fiscal responsibility by the states. And what's also interesting is that only 2 states, Lagos and Rivers, according to the report, can survive by living on the internal generated revenue. That is, they are the only 2 states who can survive without federal allocation, which brings to question the viability of many of our states and the way our governors, several of them, continue to carry on as if they are not cutting their coats according to their sizes. And what I must also commend, that report showed that Kebbi jumped off from about the list, jumped 16 places to number 16 amongst those states that are amongst the state internal generated revenue, which is quite commendable. I think Kebbi has done something remarkable. Other states should go and learn. But on the other hand, Jigawa jumped from 16 to the last position. And so wow. The people of Jigawa should begin to question their governor.
I think he should have jumped down.
Jigawa, okay.
He said jump down. People will think he jumped
okay.
down. So
okay. Came down.
Jigawa
came down. Okay, slid down from 16 position to the bottom. And I also look, if you also look at the report, Rivers and Bayelsa, they are neighboring states. Rivers can depend on its internally generated revenue, but Bayelsa cannot depend at all. Bayelsa is amongst the least in terms of internally generated revenues.
I mean, Adesu, I guess this gives the states the impetus to work harder. You know the failures already, the anomalies, then just get to work.
You know, it would be disingenuous if the states are just realizing that at this time. And I join Emmanuel to comment this report because it does show just how dependent states are on federal allocation. I mean, for some of them, it's nearly 73% of their revenue that comes from the federal allocation. And what this does is that it ties their budget to fluctuations, the ups and downs of oil revenues and the money they get from the federal government, leaving them very vulnerable. Now, how do you get creative? Because the report also highlights, while highlighting the challenges, there's also how you can fix this. And they talk about their IGRs. For a lot of states, IGR just, when they hear IGR, it is taxation. That's not the only way you can make money as a state. And I think that for the longest time, the states have relied too much on the federal running to Abuja, cap in hand, to collect those federal monies. You can be creative. And some will say perhaps this is why oil is seen as the curse to us. We all focus on that oil money. As a state, what are you doing to generate revenue? Can we look at tourism? Can we look at your strong points and start to make money from that? Because some of the states are just civil servant states, like they like to call them. That's all they do. But I guess every state has the potential to do beyond that. Right. For instance, the northern states, where most of them are seen as the low-ranked states, where we have natural resources. What is being done there? We see that they are being resourced for the very few, and even being stolen. You see foreigners come to steal those resources when you can make money from them and, you know, make your state better. There's also a red flag that the report highlights, and that is their debts. Most of these states are raking in serious domestic debts. And the problem here is that they are not translating to project infrastructure, economic benefits for the people to see and to feel. That's a problem as well.
Actually, Constance, let me just add this.
Right.
It's surprising, though, and this is telling, that while the FAAC grew according to budget due to subsidy removal, the citizens have grown poorer. Income depleted by inflation, health, transportation, food have all gone beyond the ceiling, and the government still increasing the fuel price. We just had that yesterday. So it leaves you wondering, what's the fate of Nigerians in the scheme of things at all levels of government? It's really disheartening.
Actually, our next story is related to this. So let's continue the conversation by looking at Daily Trust. Why northern governors opposed VAT bill. According to Governor Sule, Abdullahi Sule is the governor of Nasarawa State, and he explains that the derivation-based new proposal for value-added tax will amount to another form of 13% derivation. This, he says, will not favor the North, he argues, and that's why the northern governors are against the bill. He's right, this is similar to 13% derivation, but isn't it a situation, an opportunity for states or Nigeria to begin to pursue the policy of spend what you earn, or spend your income, or generate income and spend it, instead of everybody waiting for the center? Emmanuel?
First of all, I must start by saying that the issue about the Governor Sule saying that this is another 13% derivation, it's not a wholesome comment, because I do remember in year 2000, it was the northern states led by Speaker Naba that pushed for the establishment of the NDDC after President Obasanjo had withheld his assent to that bill. At that time, Nigeria was more united. Now, coming to this issue about the VAT reform bill, one must commend President Tinubu for this initiative. The essence of it is that states will get VAT based on derivation. And the northern states seem to be suspicious of this move. And mark you, the derivation, presently, derivation is spread, VAT is distributed based on demographics, based on state population and such. So, which is a disadvantage to some of the states that essentially produce these VAT taxes. And that is why some people get agitated when some states in the country say that they are destroying alcohol and destroying some other things that under products that bring about this VAT revenue. Okay. But I must add something too. The unease of the northern states also fuels from the fact that this new policy is not because some of the states that produce these products that are vatable, the consumption in the north will not reflect in what is coming to them.
All right. So I guess the long-term goal will be to phase out all of this. You know, if there are states that think that they do not, they're not productive or do not produce more, then you have to begin to make long-term plans. Profligate expenditure, as we see across all the states. It's high time we begin to roll that back, Andy. And then look at more innovative ways of being more productive.
I am trying to
at the state level.
I'm trying to particularly wrap my head around this, because the derivation model, I understand, whether that is correct or not, that the states where the companies are domiciled will gain more. So, I mean, a state like Lagos, the capital, the economic capital of Nigeria, would then definitely gain much more.
Well, if
so it borders on, did those companies also make investments in other states like Nigeria generally? So that's why I'm a little bit...
If you make your state, you know,
is it a question of making your...
yes, I mean, this one, if you make your state more friendly and you find innovative ways of generating revenues, then that's what's going to happen. You cannot be only Lagos. It cannot be only...
Yeah, but that's the point, because Nigeria was the economic capital. So so I mean, the other states were disadvantaged, sort of. And even now, everybody seems to want to go to Lagos. Everybody seems to, just like Abuja.
Definitely. It's a challenge, and a challenge that even the government recognizes, because very recently we had a forum with investors, domestic investors, in fact, with the vice president leading the charge, Kashim Shettima, and asking these investors to look beyond Lagos and Abuja, and those very few capital cities as their investment destinations, because Nigeria is made up of 36 states. So it's a problem to see that most of this investment comes to those few states. But you're right, Dr. Constance. Why would I decide to bring my money to a state?
Is it the job of the state? Is it the job of the investor, or the job of the central? And
so there's so many factors I'm considering before I bring my money to your state.
Yeah, that's why, again, government policies, because again, government should also think, I mean, look at what you call rural city migration. Why? Because the rural areas are not being made, how do you put it? People don't want to go there or stay there.
We have to move on.
So there are many arguments around this.
Okay, I wish we had more time. Let's quickly look at Punch this morning. Again, NNPCL hikes petrol prices, fixes 1,060 Naira per litre for petrol. Let's look at the international headlines. Daily Graphic. Government urges ceasefire in Baku, imposes curfew, deploys security. Apparently, there's a chieftaincy conflict in that part of the region in Ghana, and the Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs is calling on everyone to step down. He's calling a truce. Then Citizen, no house in your lifetime. More than 1.3 million people are still on the list for new homes in Gauteng. Is it Gauteng? Right.
Gauteng.
Yes.
Yeah, G is the H.
Okay. I wonder what language that is.
Well, they speak many languages.
Right. Yes. Okay. The department in charge of housing and says only 3.3% of homes have been delivered, and that is 9,000 houses. And he says that, well, if you continue on this pace, that means it will take 150 years for people to get homes. Emmanuel, quick comment on that.
Well,
I mean, but it also shows that there's planning. You don't just wake up and go and build homes like we do in Nigeria. You have to wait for the government,
He's saying we don't
there's a policy. Well,
I think it's the government's policy of delivering on housing. And it must be commendable in the sense that, yes, there is a plan. There is a plan that is in action. Whatever the deficiencies in the implementation of the plan. So that report focuses on the fact that delivery is low. I think just in 5 years, just about 9,000 units have been brought, and the waiting list is extending, that somebody living now can expect to get his house in 150 years. So it's a sorry state.
Yeah, I mean, compare that to building
life expectancy.
Yeah, compare that to building here, where people just build anyhow, and then you have the ugly urbanized centers that we have. Anyway, let's look at Daily Mirror.
And then you have demolitions.
Yes, that's why you have demolitions. Yeah, Minister Wike is demolition heavily now. Daily Mirror, Southport accused terror and toxin found at home. The 18-year-old accused of murdering 3 children, which sparked deadly riots in the UK earlier this year, has been accused of terrorism. I mean, this incident for people is a lot of shock. and then investigations have revealed there is more to it. And, you know, to commit such a crime at a young age, this one, he's only 18.
18.
It's horrific, and you wonder what he's been exposed to in the short life on earth as an 18-year-old, you know, that is able to carry out this dastardly act. But like you said, investigations are underway. I just wanted to comment on the housing issue. It looks like one story that fits all in Africa, because we're talking about South Africa in this particular story in Citizen, but isn't it our reality in Nigeria?
Yes.
I mean, and then when you say, well, we are building here in Nigeria, but if I have to wait for the government for 150 years, I might as well build my own shelter to have a home. You know, there was a time where we said the basic needs of life were water, air, shelter, clothing, and food. I think by now, shelter has left that list because there's nothing basic about it. You know, building materials are so expensive. To get the land approved is another, you know, is another task that, you know, you really don't want to go to. It's a nightmare, you know, but every government is trying to make sure that people have shelters over their head around the world. It's a challenge for most governments.
Let's look at iNewspaper. Reeves hands 6.7% wage rise to low earners as millions face painful tax increases. The Labour Party also has been accused of breaching pledge not to hit working people as Reeves aims to find, she aims to find £40 billion to plug financial black hole. What an irony. There's a wage increase at the same time there's a tax increase, you know, but it's difficult for Chancellor of the Exchequer. She has to find 40 billion pounds in order to plug that loophole. Very quickly, 30 seconds, Emmanuel.
Well, it's another irony for Labour Party, which promised much, but as it were, coming to govern, it's now finding that its governing is now a hard nut to crack. It may not do well for the party, especially in the coming few elections that are likely to approach. So how it's going to do that is another thing. We've not talked about the NHS scenario. So
they're working on that, yes.
So I think the government is in a difficult position.
And that's why a report recently I read, people are now less likely to believe governments or politics or politicians, that they always speak from two sides of their mouth, tongue in cheek. They always lie.
Is it about two sides of the mouth in this case, though? The situation was thoroughly damaged. You have a big black hole in the budget, and you have to fix it.
No, so if they knew that, why did they promise? They made promises in the manifesto. They were warned by the IFS that those promises are not deliverable. You cannot deliver those promises. So don't make them.
So that's the point.
The government did not promise, just like in Nigeria, the government did not promise us that they were going to invest us with the kind of petrol prices we have now. And so politicians have to keep to their words.
And people are just not believing them any longer, even doubting democracy. But that's not the point. I mean, democracy is still the best form of government. It's people playing the democracy that's the issue. All right.
We should go and join politics then and do it differently.
Okay. But that's the point. But that's the point. Okay. All right.
All right. Unfortunately, that's the much we can take. Time is really not your friend when you're having time. When you're having fun.
Time is your friend. Is she managing the time?
Okay, Dr. Constance Okoko, thank you so much. We'll see you again tomorrow. And Mr. Emmanuel Ezekien, thank you for being here as our guest analyst for the day. Indeed, it's time to go. I am Adeso Moran. Thank you so much for watching. Up next is the morning show. Remember, at 10:30 a.m. West African time, you have your favorite What's Trending segment of the show coming up with Oji Okpe.
Indeed, when you paused, I thought you were going to take us longer. All right, that's it. I am Ndi Amogo. Thanking you for watching.